Hi, everyone. I'm here with two wonderful guests. This is ahead of our conference on Saturday. Some of you, I hope, will see. I hope to see some of you at that conference on Saturday, the Rejoin EU. Richard, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin?
Yes, thank you, Max. Hello, my name is Richard Hewison. I'm the treasurer of the Rejoin EU Party, and over the last few years, we've been working to try and win seats in London and well, not win seats, but certainly promote the cause of rejoining the European Union in London and various by-elections in the UK.
Fantastic. Briony, can you tell us a bit about yourself too?
Yes, I can. I did my genetic inheritance and found that I was marginally more from the continent than from the British Isles.
Hmm.
And this has strengthened my sense of Europeanness. And I was fortunate to be able to get a European passport as well as a British one. And my sphere of interest is the arts. And so I have done a number of European themed art projects. And at the moment, I'm working on a sculpture park with European figures on Romney Marsh in Kent. Because of my interest in Europe and my distress at Brexit and my sincere belief that Europe should stick together for all the great issues in the political moment, I have taken an interest in Rejoin EU because I think it's essential that there is political representation. And the larger organization, the European movement, which is excellent in its way, steers clear of any political involvement, whereas I think it's essential that we have a presence.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. So on Saturday, there is this event. Richard, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's going to bring together quite a lot of the biggest activists, hopefully, in the Rejoin movement in the UK. We've got the amazing Femi coming to give a keynote address on how he thinks things are going to go beyond Brexit. We've got the amazing Liz Webster coming as well to talk about all the problems that there's been in farming. And of course, from the National Rejoin March, Peter Kapoor, who's done so much to organise the big marches up and down the country, is going to be there to talk about the role of direct activism and how people can get involved. So those are the sort of three major things that we've got. There's a big debate in Parliament on Monday about the rejoining the EU in response to the number of signatures on a petition, and the R Star movement, who are going to be lobbying there. They're going to come to our conference and show us their stuff there as well. And we're also going to have an absolutely fascinating discussion on the role of social media and how the Trumpism of today is undermining the truth of social media and journalism. We've got Ben Chambers, who's done so much with SMR, coming, and the amazing Matilda Mallinson, the famous journalist, coming as well, and also some other person. I can't quite remember their name. Max, maybe you can help me with that.
Yes, I will be in attendance there, so it'd be great to see all of you there, and I hope some of the people who are watching this will be in attendance as well. And maybe we can start, it's a stepping stone to more events like that because it'd be great to meet up with everyone. Um, just to go into a bit more detail about how Brexit has been impacting, for example, the arts. Brian, in what way has Brexit been impacting the arts, and what can be done moving forward to undo some of the damage?
Well, famously, it has interfered with musicians traveling and performing in Europe, causing huge complications for their transport of their instruments and so on. And for my small project, there's also been a difficulty. I did have assistance from the Erasmus program, which of course came to an end, and I had sculptors working for me from the mainland of Europe. And I found now that I can't employ artists from there because the transport costs and the customs duty and VAT that are now imposed as you come in through Dover, it was not the case before. So I'm looking back to the British Isles for sculptors to continue my work. So I'm only a small organisation, but I believe it's very serious at the higher levels.
And Richard, in when it comes to businesses, how have businesses been impacted as opposed to the arts?
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the most universal impacts of Brexit has been the undermining of the value of the British currency, for a start. I mean, forget all the rules and regulations as a starting point. All imports basically went up by 25% in price since the Brexit result was announced back in 2016, which, of course, causes immediate difficulties for most people trying to trade in the UK. Add to that the new red tape measures that have come in or are threatened to come in as well, because let's remember, not all of Brexit has been able to actually be implemented at the moment, because we know what a disaster it's going to be if full separation actually was to take place at places like the ports of Dover. So the results have already been very devastating on a lot of businesses. Indeed, one of the things we're going to be highlighting at our conference on Saturday is the launch of our 4% Club, which is going to provide a forum for businesses who are affected by this 4% loss of GDP as a result of Brexit to come together and, well, basically tell us what they want us to do on their behalf. So I wouldn't want to preempt any of those discussions, but we've talked to some pretty angry business people over the last few months.
So while business people and artists are complaining about Brexit, we're hearing very little from politicians. Why is that? Why is that the case?
Well, this is a very good question. One of the things that I find very interesting about the UK is that we're now in a post-general election environment, and the parties should be repositioning themselves at this stage. And before the general election, I spoke to a lot of people who said, well, we absolutely agree with you on Brexit, but we want to get the Tories out. So, I'm 100% against Brexit, but I'm going to vote for the party saying we're going to make Brexit work just because I want to see the back of the Tories. Well, we voted them into office. They are now the government. They seem to have gone back on every other promise that they made before the general election. I wish they'd go back on the promise to try and make Brexit work, because it's clearly not. And I think still people are inhibited about standing up to say that. Perhaps on a more serious note, we know that there's now the threat from the rise of the Reform Party. And let's just remind people, this is the Brexit Party that have retitled themselves. And at the moment, both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party seem to be trying to out-reform reform in terms of the things they're saying. They're aiming their fire towards the more radical right end of the political spectrum and kind of ignoring those of us who think, wouldn't it be a good idea to actually re-engage with Europe and reintroduce the politics of sanity? I would hope that the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party would seize the opportunity of the vacuum post the election to move in with big guns on the issue of rejoining. I think at the moment they're still keeping their powder dry, so to speak, but I am hoping over the next few months we will see a realignment and a movement in that direction to start talking about rejoining the EU again. And as you know, while it's not, we'll still be there standing in by-elections saying, come on, won't somebody take up this issue, please, until somebody does.
And Briony, what would you like to hear from politicians moving forward?
Like to hear Starmer is clearly trying to get close to Europe and is working very closely, in particular in the matter of the defence of Europe in the Trump era. I would like to hear him honestly say that a large proportion of our country regrets leaving the European Union, and I would like to speak for the whole of the country, and therefore I want to make space for discussion in this area. And he is, for some reason, afraid or limiting himself, but he clearly himself believes it was a mistake and clearly wants to get closer. Why is he not able to be frank and straightforward in the matter? He would be representing a large proportion of the voting public and all the young people, whether they can vote or not.
Do you see pressure growing over the next number of years, Richard?
Oh, it has to. It has to. I mean, if we have a look at everything that this government has tried doing so far, it's been, we need to grow the economy, right? We need to focus on growth. And it's just not working, because we know that the easiest way to actually boost the economy is to restore our international trading links and restore confidence in the business community of this country that we have a government that knows what it's actually doing. And part of me thinks maybe Starmer and Reeves just want to say, well, okay, we gave it a year. Look what a disaster it's been. Maybe we should rejoin the EU. But what I would say to them is, you've done your job. We're convinced. Let's just move to the next stage and start talking about rejoining.
But there's a really valid point, and it brings up the next question I wanted to pose to both of you. The idea that because Brexit is creating so many problems, why is the government not using it as an excuse, a legitimate excuse for a lot of the problems that they're facing? So when it comes to cuts in GDP, or when it comes to cutbacks, for example, for public services, a lot of this is down to as a result of Brexit. Why is the government not using this?
Do you want to go first on that one,
We're
Briony?
going to Briony first, yes.
Well, I think the Labour Party depends on a working class vote, and they are convinced that the working class are the main supporters of reform. They don't trust the well-educated liberal city folk to vote for them. And so I think they're being nervous in that way. They might also consider, and this is after all a valid point, that if Norway and Switzerland can have special relationships with the EU, that perhaps the best way forward is to develop our own special relationship and align ourselves with those two very much more prosperous countries than we are, but they are exceptions, and perhaps we want to be exceptional in that way. So I think, that is a way forward, and it may be what they're thinking. It's hard to know.
Richard,
I mean, I have to
yeah.
say I agree with a lot of what you've said there, Brian. And I think one of my big disappointments is looking back on previous Labour governments. I mean, I was never a big fan of Blair and the Blair team, but at least in Blair's era, the Labour Party tried leading on public opinion, going into places that were sensible, but perhaps not terribly popular. Things like the devolution, LGBTQ rights, that sort of thing. They were brave pioneers leading the public debate rather than fearful followers worried about public opinion. I don't see that from the Starmer government at all. I see no leadership on issues. I see following the opinion polls, following the focus groups, which ironically everyone used to always accuse Blair of, but in retrospect, I think that the Blair administration was braver than this administration we've got now.
Briony mentioned there the relationship with Europe. What about the relationship with the US? Is now with Donald Trump in the White House, is the special relationship going to drive this strange relationship with Donald Trump? Is this going to drive the UK further away from the United States and closer to Europe, or do you see the opposite happening?
I think probably it will. I mean, the problem with Donald Trump, love him or hate him, is the only way to get on with Donald Trump is to be utterly subservient to him and brown nose for all you're worth. And British people don't like groveling at the feet of foreign dictators. They revile Putin. They revile all the communist dictators that we've seen in the past. They will certainly revile treating Trump in that particular way and turn against it. I think we will naturally be turning back to Europe because now we have laid bare the international security issue that really should have been at the back of our minds all along. We've got an aggressive neighbour to the east that is hideously expansionist. Ukraine is suffering the brunt of that at the moment. And really, the whole free world has to stand up against that. America has abdicated that responsibility or is in the process of abdicating that responsibility. And I think British people will see that we have to stand up with Europe. Otherwise, it's the end for liberal democracy on this planet if we don't.
Briony, would you? Yeah.
I take a longer term view. I think it's excellent that we've been driven closer to Europe and having to warmly cooperate with them. I think it's excellent that we are standing with Canada in their troubles with the United States. These two things are beneficial. But with respect to the United States, President Trump is only there for 4 years. We have a long historical relationship with the US. I'm sure that it will find its balance. And in the meantime, one could say that pushing us into the arms of Europe and closer to Canada are good things and will continue even after Trump has left office. So I think we could be long-term beneficiaries of the present trauma.
I certainly hope you're right there, Briony. Steve Bannon's put out an interesting article today suggesting that Donald Trump could stand and win again in 2028, obviously overturning the entire American Constitution in the process. So I'm kind of optimistic that a Trump is not for life, it's just for 4 years. I kind of hope we're right there. But again, once people like Trump get into power, it is quite difficult to lever them out. I can't believe we got rid of him in 2020 and then had him back again. That's a sad indictment of the system, really. But let's hope Bannon's wrong on that particular point.
One thing
Well, he
about
was voting. Sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead. Yes, sorry.
He had a significant majority. He was democratically voted in, and he is the president. So we have to respect that. He is stirring things up, which is not a bad thing because we have become a little sleepy, a little decadent, a little lazy in management of our countries. And somebody like that makes us think freshly. So even though we may not agree, it could be, as I say, beneficial in the long term. I'm afraid I'm a bit of an optimist now. We think things
I
will
was going
turn
to
out
say
all
that
right.
is a very optimistic spin on it, Briony. I admire you for being able to say that. Has Trump made us sit up and think? Yes, he has, but I can tell you it's not nice thoughts on my part, that's for sure.
So it was wonderful speaking to both of you today. Hopefully we will be able to speak more on Saturday when at the event. So once again, anyone who hasn't anyone who has booked their ticket, I hope to see you at the event on Saturday. So is there anything you both of you would like to say before we finish for today?
Just
I'm
thank you for
looking for.
having me, Max. It's wonderful to be on your podcast again, and I can't wait to see you on Saturday. And I'm greatly looking forward to hear your views on lies and the social media. That's going to be brilliant.
Yes, and as we've done most of the talking, it will be good to hear you on Saturday.
Yep, we will very much be shutting up on Saturday. But
Great. Thanks very much.
Bye bye.
bye.
Bye bye.